All right, you ready for this?
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there is Brandon.
That's me.
You can find us online at namely90s.com or on Instagram at namely90s. You can also find this show on YouTube every Monday at youtube.com/@namely90s. And if you'd like to support the show, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/namely90s and sign up for one of our support levels.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
I'm listening. That's
to me.
That's
talking.
Frasier's,
Oh, right.
Frasier's catchphrase. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, what's new since we last talked?
So I went to a trivia night the other week. I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. And it was 90s themed, and only 3 of us showed up. One of us was born halfway through the 90s, so it's as effective as us knowing.
That's rough.
Yeah. And the other person was our age. So it was surprising we got second place, which I was quite proud of, because there were like 3 or 4 questions that were like, what year was this specifically in? And we were off by like 2 or 3, and one of them we were off because I was like, oh, that was early 90s, and it was actually mid 90s. But
yeah,
yes,
yep, yeah, no, good. Yeah, I thought you did it.
I was just gonna say, we did a good job, and a lot of it was, or not a lot of it, but I'd say a quarter of the answers that I had. No, I'd say half the answers that I had probably came from doing research on this show.
I was going to say, like, after 210 recordings, I am low-key knowledgeable about the 90s. Like,
right.
Not to the degree that you are, but I actually know stuff and can, like, kind of pull stuff out as far as facts go.
Same. But then there were, like, ones where I was, like, face-palming because, so there's, like, a movie round, which, by all means, should have gotten that. So it was 10, they listed 10 actors and the year, and you had to guess the blockbuster that they were in that year. And 1999 was Natalie Portman. And we're like, oh, it's that one where she's like really young and like
Star Wars.
Yeah, yes, it was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, even I had that one.
I know. We were like racking our brains because it's like what
are you talking about? What movie are you referring to?
It's like the Assassin Lorenzo or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like a blockbuster.
Okay.
That movie made $5.
To be fair, I missed the prompt and it wasn't on the screen. I just knew it was movies in the 90s with them in it. Had I known it was blockbusters, it was The Professional. We didn't even do the right one. It was The Professional.
Wow.
Oh, 1984, Leon the Professional. Yeah,
that's such a blockbuster. I've heard of it now.
It's Jean Reno.
Janet Reno?
No, the French guy from Godzilla. Jean Reno, but it's Jean.
That reminds me. This is probably better suited to last week's episode, but I went and saw The Equalizer 3 in theaters.
Oh, how's that?
Not as good as I wanted it to be.
Well, I wouldn't think so.
I mean, it wasn't bad. It was a romp, but yeah, not as good as I wanted it to be.
Was it a popcorn flick, or was it like it wanted to be Oppenheimer, but it wasn't?
No, it's a popcorn flick. It's just like, I think they went for gore and graphicness just because they kind of didn't know where else to go.
Was it R-rated?
Oh, yeah.
Were the other two?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But it was just like overly gory, and he didn't do enough of like the setting his watch and like kicking people's asses in like 16 seconds.
Right.
Denzel's as good as always.
Dakota Fanning?
Yeah, she's good. There's kind of a plot twist at the end where you're like, oh, that's how it all connects. Kind of unbelievable as her character, but pulls it off okay.
Is she an assassin or something?
No, she's like works for the CIA. And then without giving away too much, like the movie just starts really slow, and it never really feels like there's a strong climax. And then it's over.
Said. Oh, that's what they said. Yeah. Fair. Speaking of which, since we brought up Oppenheimer as well, do you have any more thoughts on Equalizer 3 before we move on?
No, I think that about does it. I mean, I'd still see it. It completes the trilogy nicely, but the first one was the best.
As a lot of movies like that are. I saw this morning, the day we recorded this, so last week, 2 weeks ago, there's rumors going around that the next two Bond films, they're looking for Chris Nolan to direct.
Yeah, I did hear a rumor of that.
Yeah.
I think he's even spoken on that possibility, and
that's probably why it was in the news.
It's like, I think they'd have to be open to his way of doing it. Otherwise, he doesn't want to bother. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you'd have to still obviously be true to the franchise, but they couldn't handcuff him creatively. Otherwise, what the hell's the point? You know?
So connected to that rumor, like, oh, it's probably, it's going to be a period piece. Like a lot of people were thinking the next the reboot would be, and the other part attached to it is, like the books, it's going to stick close to the source material, which some people are taking literally, which they shouldn't, because that just means that it's going to just be a bunch of racist and sexism.
Yeah.
And
I also feel like it'll take a long time. Like it's been a while since the last one.
Has it? It's been 2 years? 1 year?
Yeah, but you think about like how long it's going to take him to make one.
True.
So like 9 years. I'll be using a walker, an assistive device to get into the movie theater.
James Bond begins.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Bond begins.
Yeah. Yes.
Another argument I saw was that they already did Nolan-ify James Bond with Casino Royale. Like, I know it was like the camera work was more Bourne, but like the grit and the weight and the grit of the film was definitely like the Dark Knight version.
I think a fun thought exercise is to determine like how much herpes he has in modern day Bond times,
and how is he alive?
Yeah, yes. He is a herpy at this point,
right? Which, if you've ever watched the animated series Archer, that's essentially what they did with that character.
By the way, I always use protection.
Yes, but double up for safety, even though that's less.
I feel like
less efficient.
Doesn't Pierce Brosnan as James Bond do at least 5 quips about using protection? Like
when he doesn't.
I think in GoldenEye, he has doesn't he like shoot some lady? He would say broad. I wouldn't say broad. And he's like, oh, I guess that's why I always bring protection or something like that. Which he's just referring to his gun.
Yes. And then, you said over his tenure, right? Because I know I just did, like a month ago, I did Tomorrow Never Dies for the Namely 90s Minute. And she's like, do you still sleep with a gun under your pillow, James? Yeah. And he's like, oh, is that protection? Or
I like how they're trying to make it sound like he's being responsible.
But then isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, I mean, he has a sex fight with Zina Onatov in the Russian bathhouses.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, as a young child, I'm not sure if I was supposed to be aroused by that or mortified or confused.
Mostly confused. Why are they doing the same wrestling that mommy and daddy does?
And this is why I need to be choked. Just kidding.
I know.
Anyway, I started doing intermittent fasting.
Oh, I hear that's pretty good that's effective and is good at starting your ketosis.
I'm also eating less calories. The thing I found interesting is, so I'm trying to get into these seltzer waters.
Ugh.
They're not great, but Cascade Ice, the ones that like used to come in the little thing and they're like artificially sweetened. I'm kind of trying to lay off that too, but right. Cascade Ice, the flavor was really good. It has no calories. It has no artificial sweeteners, and it has caffeine, 160 milligrams per can. It was good. I liked it. It was better than every other seltzer I've ever had. So I'm kind of on those now.
Yeah, I think my family buys those from Kirkland or Costco. I don't know. I've never liked seltzer water. I prefer still. It's
not good, but they don't really make a lot of still flavored water, but not.
Have you heard about, not a sponsor, but boy, I wish they were. There's this like water bottle that has like a
Balls energy drink. No, yeah, it's the one where it's like a water bottle. There's a little capsule you put at the top, and it like flavors it as you.
Well, it doesn't flavor it. It releases smells, so you think that it's changing.
Just smells.
So you're still just drinking water, but you get you took OChem. What's the chain of chemicals?
Oh, aromatics.
Yes, but yes, the aromatics come through, and
you just tape one of those pine tree air fresheners from your car to the top of a plastic water bottle. You'll be fine.
I mean, I think you're not supposed to ingest those, but I guess if you're just smelling it, you might get really high if you do that. But yeah, it's essentially the same concept. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find what that's called and send it your way. See if you're interested.
You eat with your nose first, as people say. No,
but it is true. You're like, we only have five senses for taste. Sorry, we have five senses, but your taste only has the 5 sweet, salty, umami, savory, and what's the 5th one? You're the foodie.
Sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami.
Yes, thank you. But like all the flavors that we experience are olfactory stuff. So if you're plugging your nose, nothing's going to taste like
the olfactory.
Yep.
Hence why you don't taste things when you have COVID.
I'm a winemaker.
This is also how cats work, by the way. If cats can't smell, they don't like to eat.
That makes sense. I would assume if no one can, like, I don't envy the people with anosmia.
Ad nauseum?
Yes, ad nauseum, which is how I eat. Unendingly. Shall we get into today's deep dive or keep prattling on like Gazendange?
No, we can go into it.
All right. Because this is a long one. In honor of Frasier coming back this week, I deep dived into all 11 seasons of Cheers and all 11 seasons of Frasier. Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of seasons.
Yes, it is. I started this a month ago.
Yes.
I started watching it on September 11th. That's when I started watching Cheers. And 16 days later, I finished Cheers. It should have been 15. But anyway, I call this Tossed Salads and Scrambled Eggs, a Frasier retrospective. No, I'm listening. A Frasier retrospective. Let's start with Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. Cheers, an American sitcom television series that ran on NBC from September 30th, 1982 to May 20th, 1993, with a total of 275 half-hour episodes across 11 seasons. There was a season that had like 29 episodes in it. Yeah. The show was produced, I've clearly lost my mind at this point. The show was produced by Charles Productions in association with Paramount Network Television, and it was created by a team of James Burrows and Glenn and Les Charles. The show is set in the titular bar in Boston, where a group of locals meet to drink, relax, and socialize. And at the center of the show is the bar's owner and head bartender, Sam Malone, who is a womanizing former relief pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. The show's ensemble cast introduced in the pilot are Diane Chambers and Carla Tortelli, a second bartender named Coach Ernie Patuso, and regular customers Norm Peterson and Cliff Clavin. John Ratzenberger was Cliff Clavin.
He plays Ham on Toy Story.
Yeah. Later, main characters of the show include Frasier Crane, Woody Boyd, Lilith Stern Crane, and Rebecca Howe. The show spent most of its run on NBC's Thursday night must-see TV lineup, and its widely watched series finale was broadcast in 1993 and became the most watched single TV episode of the 1990s.
I'm surprised that something pertaining to the last episode of Seinfeld wasn't the most watched or something.
Right, because that one did gangbusters. The one with the Super Bowl for Friends was pretty big too.
And which one was that? No, I'm kidding.
Funny. And nominated for, actually, no, it wasn't the one with the Super Bowl. It was the one with the one when Marcel gets the commercial. I think
that's Stupid Monkey. Yeah. I love Friends. I can't believe they did the monkey thing, and that early.
I mean, I think that was like the gimmick back. That's why it was gone in the later seasons. Just like Cheers, nominated for Outstanding Comedy Series for all 11 of its seasons on the air. It earned 28 Primetime Emmy Awards for a record of 117 nominations.
Wow.
The character of Frasier debuted in the third season premiere Rebound Part 1 in 1984. So leading up to that point, Sam and Diane were an on and off again couple. Diane was this grad student that was a lifelong learner, as they say, and Sam, we already described. First season, they flirted, and then they finally got together. In the second season, they got together, and I think they were going to get married, and then she leaves him. I think that was the first time.
Okay.
It happened multiple times.
It's like the Ross and Rachel of the 1980s.
Absolutely. And Frasier was, he comes back, he debuts as Diane Chambers' love interest, and it's a part of the Sam and Diane story arc. Frasier met her while she was in an institution.
Wow, the Smithsonian?
Yes, as they would say in the 80s, a loony bin. And he was a psychiatrist there, but not her psychiatrist.
That's still borderline at best.
Absolutely.
And not personality disorder, just borderline questionable.
Yep. He met her as she was about to strike an old lady with a croquet mallet. Intended to appear for only a few episodes, Grammer's performance for the role was praised by producers, prompting them to expand this role and increase his prominence. For his portrayal in Cheers, he was nominated twice as an outstanding supporting actor in a comedy series, but did not win. And the character of Frasier was created in this third season to be a romantic and intellectual ideal for Diane following her breakup with Sam, who was a womanizer, as we keep saying. Not only is he Sam Malone's rival and opposite, Frasier is also part of the love triangle to give a different form of the Sam-Diane relationship, said Glenn Charles. The show's writers initially conceived the character as the role Ralph Bellamy used to play in Cary Grant movies. He was the guy that ladies fall in love with, but is not real. You just know he doesn't have the sexual dynamism that Grant does.
Yeah. Frasier seems like strangely asexual in a way. You know what I mean?
I mean, having watched the first season of Frasier now,
I think it's his haircut, but
yeah, fair. I was gonna say he doesn't get with a lot of women in Cheers, and he seems to get with less women in the first season of Frasier. And fun fact that you said a few weeks ago, John Lithgow was originally chosen by Cheers producers for the role, but he turned it down. And Grammer believed that he failed the audition because no one laughed, but he was chosen because of the quality of his performance with Ted Danson.
And that would set the stage for... No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No one laughing.
For the Kramer, the Frasier Sam Malone love line. Anyway, his character was not universally popular, however, for coming between Sam and Diane. Kramer said a viewer once approached him asking, "Are you that pin dick that plays Frasier?" And
yes, I am.
The show received much fan mail denouncing Grammer. Going into Frasier's history, he's an alumnus of Harvard University and Harvard Medical School and Oxford University. He enters as a psychiatrist, and he's there to... He offers Sam help to recover from his brief alcoholism over losing Diane for 6 months.
Just to point out, you can't be briefly alcoholic.
Oh no, fair. He relapsed for 6 months, and he was coming out of it, but then Coach convinced Frasier that he needed to look after Sam, or no, Coach convinced Diane that she needed to be around so Sam wouldn't drink, and then convinced Sam that she needed to be around for a dumb reason.
I've never been to AA before, but I understand that there's what they call the Big Book, which is like the sort of the Bible for AA. Pretty sure the first sentence is "Don't work at a bar."
Sorry, he owns the bar.
First sentence is "Don't own a bar."
Fair. Yes. So, Frasier and Diane get engaged and is her fiance throughout the back half of the third season. And then they're supposed to wed in Italy in the episode Rescue Me, the season finale of season 3.
The one with Dennis Leary? No, that's a FX series.
That is, that was a good series that I never finished. But yes, so he pops the question. No, he says they should get married while they're over there, and they're about to get married, and then it ends on a cliffhanger where she leaves him as well in Europe. So in the season 4 premiere, Birth, Death, Love, and Rice, Frasier enters the bar and tells Sam that he was jilted by Diane at the altar in Europe because Sam hadn't had any. It was classic Diane, because Sam didn't have contact with her either, even though he flew across the Atlantic to stop the wedding, but couldn't find her because they went to a different spot to get married than they said they would. Frasier, who had given up his practice in the States to go teach in a residency in Europe, was laughed out of the university for how he was treated by Diane, which is apparently something you do in the 80s.
I feel like intellectuals don't mock each other for failed relationships.
They in the series Frasier, they appear to be very catty individuals.
Shouldn't they be sensitive to this fact as psychiatrists and mental health professionals?
Absolutely, they should. Later in season 4, he begins to attend Cheers regularly for drinks and finds himself depending more and more on alcohol. In the episode The Triangle, Sam feigns symptoms of depression. Diane comes back.
So you mean a show about people who basically live at a bar has to deal with alcoholism on a regular basis?
Yep.
What a shock.
So Diane comes back, or Sam asks Diane to come back to the bar. She accepts, and Frasier to help Frasier recover from his alcoholism and regain some self-confidence. Sam pretends to be depressed, and has Frasier quote unquote cure him. This leads Frasier to conclude that Sam's symptoms indicate he's in love with Diane. However, upon arrival, Frasier sees Sam and Diane arguing in the bar office, and Sam admits it was a plan. Furious, Frasier declares himself to be sober and refuses to be part of their relationship and vows to practice psychiatry again. He's back drinking in the next episode. The character finally...
I was just say, imagine pitching this show, or pitching a show in the 1980s. Okay, imagine it's a bar, and the show is about the people who go to it. Antics ensue.
Yep. 11 seasons.
So easy back then.
Right? And well, I mean, I think they probably pitched. They probably pitched the will they won't they story and of the two people from opposite worlds. Yeah, the character finally becomes a permanent fixture among the other bar patrons by the end of season 3, and adds his comedic repertoire to an occasional penchant for commenting on the. Whoever watched Frasier definitely wrote this article, by the way.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Adds to his penchant for commenting on the personality flaws of the other regulars, while still managing to remain likable. As an addition to the gang, although he does routinely eviscerate Diane with his words. It's to the point where it's like, ugh. Anyway.
I feel like he would use the word trollop.
I believe he's used the word trollop in both Cheers and Frasier. As his role is expanded, Frasier becomes romantically involved with a stereotypical intelligent ice queen, Lilith Sternin, played by Baby Newirth. And their first date is in second time around, which does not go well. They exchange insults with each other until she leaves the bar, disappointing him. She's also a psychiatrist, but she works as, I forget. In Abnormal Psychology, Frasier and Lilith feel a mutual attraction after Diane gives Lilith a makeover. She pulls down her hair. That was apparently a new trope back then. And I can't hear you.
I should be on Zoom, like those old people that forget to unmute themselves.
Yep.
The people look ridiculous. Like, I can't believe people dressed this way at one point, you know?
Oh, wait until you get to Rebecca. She has the shoulder pads, like the late 80s, early 90s. Pantsuit, yep. And it's big and boxy. Let's see. They start dating. They live together for a year before being married. 1 month before Our Hourly Bread, which is the episode which reveals that they're pregnant, and she gives birth to their son Frederick in The Stork Brings a Crane in 1989. Frasier is revealed to have been previously married to a Nanette Guzman in One Hugs, the Other Doesn't, when Freddie's having his second birthday party.
Freddie needs a nanny. Okay.
Exactly. So she's known as the popular children's entertainer Nanny G. They run into her at like the show that she's performing in Boston, and he's like, "Oh my God." And then she volunteers to sing at Freddie's birthday party at the bar, because of course it's at the bar.
Had to card the kid to get him in.
Yes. And when she sings a song implying her possible feelings for Frasier, despite being fully aware he's remarried, Lilith attacks her. And yes, hilarity ensues. In Teaching with the Enemy, Lilith admits her affair with another man, Dr. Louis Pascal, which dooms their marriage. They separate. She lives in a bubble underground with him for a little while, but then they rekindle their marriage by the end of the final season. As Frasier is about to sleep with Rebecca Howe, who replaced Diane in the bar in the episode, the bar manager, is there a doctor in the Howe? Great. And then Lilith unexpectedly returns to the house as they're about to do it. In the episode, the bar manager, the shrink, his wife, and her lover and then storms out and heads to Cheers. She reveals that she escaped the ego pod. The guy that she fell in love with is insane, and I don't use that term lightly. And he comes to the bar and threatens them all at gunpoint for Loth to come back with her.
I mean, to be fair, he was under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a physics joke.
Initially, Frasier refuses to take her back, but then he does by the end of the first season. The final season.
Because he's drunk.
All the time. And he ends Cheers still married. So for his performance as Frasier Crane, like I said, he was awarded for Outstanding Supporting Actor in Comedy in 1988 and 1990. Oh, and also he had he popped up in the TV series Wings as his character Frasier in the season 2 episode Planes, Trains, and Visiting Cranes, which he was nominated for an Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series at the 1992 Emmy Awards.
You've never seen Wings? Love Wings.
I actually liked Wings when I was a kid. But yes, you're referencing Quagmire and Family Guy.
Giggity.
Odd that he a pilot would love a show about a small Nantucket airport. All right, so the Cheers ends, and they're like, well, during the 8th season of Cheers, Grammer made a deal with the former Cheers producers who moved on to make the TV series Wings, that they would do a new series together once Cheers ended.
Were the guys in Wings also always drunk? Because that's a concerning issue in Congress.
They were more drunk than they should have been, although Norm and Cliff are on a flight at one point and offer him beer while they're flying, and he's like, no, I'm fine. Once it became clear during the 10th season that the 11th would be the last, the group began working on their next series together. Grammer didn't originally want to continue playing Frasier, and they didn't want the new show to be compared to Cheers, which they had worked on. The three people proposed that the actor play a wealthy, Malcolm Forbes-like paraplegic publisher who operates his business from his apartment. And that's Andrew rubbing his temples.
It just gets worse.
Face palming. The main show featured a street smart Hispanic live-in nurse
who
would clash with the main character.
I feel like it would be the mom from the George Lopez show.
Probably.
I don't know why.
That's the right time, right? While Grammer liked the concept, Paramount Television disliked it, I wonder why, and suggested that the best route would be to spin off the Frasier Crane character. He ultimately agreed to star in a Cheers spinoff, but the producers set the new show as far from Boston as possible to prevent NBC from demanding the other characters from the old show make guest appearances during the first season.
All right. I like that. That makes sense.
Right. And then
Seattle is just an afterthought.
Even better, after first choosing Denver as the location for the new series, they changed locations to Seattle after Colorado passed a law that prevented municipalities from enacting anti-discrimination laws protecting gay, lesbian, or bisexual people.
Oh, Colorado.
Classic. The creators did not want Frasier in a private practice, which would make the show be more like the Bob Newhart show. So from an unused idea they had for a Cheers episode, they conceived the concept of the psychiatrist working in a radio station surrounded by wacky yet lovable characters. After realizing that such a setting was reminiscent of WKRP in Cincinnati, a show that was in the 80s and or early 90s, creators decided to emphasize Frasier's home life, which Cheers had rarely explored. They did 11 seasons and rarely went anywhere other than the bar. Lee considered his own experience with the relationship between an aging father and the grown-up son he never understood, and that would be a good theme for Frasier. Although Frasier had mentioned on Cheers in 2 episodes in the final 2 seasons that his father was a research scientist and had died, the producers decided not to...
that was his stepdad.
That would be weird. Because... Well, I'll explain it in a second. They weren't working on Cheers in the final 2 or 3 seasons, so they didn't know that Frasier said those things. So the creative team was well into development process when Grammer pointed out the discontinuity. And they decided to be like, screw it. So they initially retcon
That's the
character's backstory, and then in the season 2 episode, the discrepancy was resolved when Frasier revealed he had lied to the Cheers gang about his father during a visit from Sam Malone. One element of the original concept that was carried over was the live-in healthcare provider for Frasier's father, although she turned out to be English. Grammer points out that very little of the Frasier Crane of Cheers carried over to Frasier, as his family history has changed, the setting, his job, and even the character himself changed from the Cheers predecessor, having to be more grounded as the central character of the show, so the support characters could be more eccentric, which is actually quite noticeable. Frasier
but he's still
pompous,
pretty not grounded.
True,
like less so, but more so. But
out of the 5, aside from his father, out of the other characters in the show, he seems the most grounded. And Frasier becomes haughty, disdainful, and exceedingly uptight in the spinoff. Also in the show, Grammer uses an acting method called requisite disrespect, and did not rehearse with the others, instead learning and rehearsing his lines once just before filming each scene in front of a live studio audience. And although effective, the system could also often cause panic among guest stars. Also, the fact that Grammer was actually a recurrent alcoholic led to a car accident in 1996, and the cast and crew performed an intervention that persuaded him to enter the Betty Ford Clinic, delaying production for a month.
Wow, that's intense.
I feel like you had a AA rule for us.
Yeah, the second sentence in that big book is, don't play an alcoholic.
Right. Some cast members of Frasier have appeared previously in minor roles on Cheers, which included in the episode Do Not Mistake Me, Oh, My Postman, where John Mahoney, who plays Frasier's father, played Cy Flembeck, an over-the-hill jingle writer hired by Rebecca to write a jingle for the bar.
Cy Flembeck, and also there's no way the bar is actually doing any sort of audio, like radio advertising or TV advertising. It's just not going to happen.
It was exactly the plot of that episode. And Frasier and Cy actually exchanged a few lines in the episode, as well as Perry Gilpin appeared in the episode Woody Gets an Election. Playing
that's a boner joke.
Yeah. He playing a reporter who interviews Woody when he runs for office. Perry Gilpin is Roz on Frasier. These were both season 11 episodes. And the set of Frasier was built over the set of Cheers on the same stage after it had finished filming. And fun fact, only one episode, the 1000th show,
which was not the 1000th show.
Right. It was the episode title, was filmed in Seattle. And that's where we leave you.
And now let's go to Brandon for the Namely 90s Minute.
Welcome back to Namely 90s Minutes. Every week we look back at a culturally relevant show, movie, or piece of pop culture that probably helps stoke the algorithm. This week, in honor of the new series Frasier coming to Paramount Plus this week, we're looking back at the pilot of the original Frasier series, The Good Son. Frasier, the 1993 sitcom that ran for 11 seasons on NBC, a spin-off of the 11-season series Cheers on the same network. The show stars the titular character who spun off from Cheers, Dr. Frasier Crane, the Virgin from Seinfeld, Henry Newman from Wet Hot American Summer, Kim Keeler from Make It or Break It, and the dad from Say Anything. The Good Son starts 6 months after the series finale of Cheers, with Frasier divorced and having moved back to his hometown of Seattle, Washington, where he got a job at a radio station as an on-air psychiatrist with his producer Roz. Frasier is approached by his brother Niles, who tells him that their father, a retired police officer injured in the line of duty, can no longer live by himself due to his injuries. So Frasier offers to take him in the hopes of repairing their relationship. The father moves in with Frasier, who is appalled when he finds his father comes with a raggedy old reclining chair and a Parson Russell Terrier named Eddie. Niles and his wife Maris, who is never seen on screen like Norm's wife Vera, offer to jointly pay for an in-home caretaker named Daphne Moon, an eccentric woman from Manchester, England. Frasier is displeased that she'd also have to move in to take care of his father, and rejects her, much to his father's displeasure. So the two of them have a fight, resulting in Frasier leaving the apartment. The next day at work, Frasier confides in Roz about his problems, and she sets him straight by telling him the story of Lupe Velez, and how that, although things might not go as planned, they can work out anyway. Next caller on the show that day is his dad looking to apologize, so they both reconcile. The final shot of the episode is Frasier, Daphne, and Martin watching TV while Eddie stares blankly at a disturbed Frasier. And that's Frasier's pilot episode, The Good Son, in a Namely 90s Minute. more or less.
And now back to the show.
Moving on to Frasier on Frasier. After Cheers, Frasier and Lilith divorce off screen, and Lilith is awarded custody of their son Frederick, with Frasier granted visiting rights. And in the pilot of Frasier, The Good Son, Frasier explains, God, I'm going to say Frasier a lot this episode.
Yes.
Frasier explains that he left Boston because he felt that his life and career had grown stagnant, and he had been publicly humiliated after climbing onto... Oh, he also almost committed suicide when Lilith had an affair.
Boy, all this Cheers stuff, it's just like total rabbit hole.
Yep. He had been publicly humiliated after climbing onto a ledge and threatened to commit suicide before being talked down. Therefore, he returned to his own original hometown of Seattle, where his father, Martin, played by John Mahoney, and his brother, Niles, played by David Hyde Pierce, live to have a fresh start. Frasier works for the radio station KACL as a host of his psychotherapeutic radio show, The Dr. Frasier Crane Show, produced by his producer and friend, Roz Doyle, played by Perry Gilpin, who has many ex-boyfriends. That's very essential to the plot.
Cackle. Is that like a fun Easter egg?
I guess so. Later, his father, Martin, a retired Seattle Police Department detective who was shot in the line of duty, ends up moving in with him. He was shot in the hip, so he has to walk around with a cane. I almost said crane.
A Frasier cane?
We're going to keep making these types of hilarious jokes throughout the rest of the Frasier part of this show. Frasier is worried about his father in his current state, as he can barely walk and requires a cane to move. So he, as I already explained, the inconsistency about his father being dead in Cheers, and he said he was an only child at one point, and all that is explained away in the show, where Sam shows up when the season 2 episode where Sam Malone from Cheers, Ted Danson, shows up and has dinner with the family and is like, well, Frasier said that you all died or never existed. And
he was in his disease. He was in his alcoholism at the time.
Yes. Actually not true. Frasier was just saying, what did Frasier say? We just had an argument on the phone and I was upset at the time. Anyway, Frasier hires a live-in physical therapist, Daphne Moon, to care for his father. And Daphne is an eccentric working class English woman who professes to be a bit psychic. Something that I feel like they play on less and less in further seasons. Moreover, Martin brings his beloved Jack Russell Terrier, Eddie, to move in with Frasier, who Frasier is uncomfortable around because Eddie just sits and stares at Frasier all the time. And after some initial hostility, Frasier grows very close to this new family. During the course of the spin-off's run, especially in scenes at Frasier's apartment, Frasier and Martin regularly fight over the living arrangements and each other's personalities. Frasier is the intellectual elitist and mild-mannered, while Martin is a rugged man of simple tastes who speaks, according to Frasier, in words that no sophisticated, educated person could understand. While Frasier has many common interests with Niles and shares adventures with him, or misadventures, he has little in common with his father, Martin. Actress Bebe Neuwirth, the lady that played Lilith, left Cheers for fear of becoming typecast, and so she could do Broadway. She did not expect to appear recurrently in Frasier, but they loved the chemistry between Frasier and Lilith and kept bringing her back. In the show where Lilith comes back, I believe is the season 1 episode, Lilith surprises Frasier by dialing into the radio show because she's in town for a conference, and they hook up in a hotel room, but end up regretting it, prompting them to part ways again. And then they decide to remain friends to help each other co-parent Frederick, who is occasionally on the show.
Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel.
Yes. Frederick played by Trevor Einhorn for the most part. Let's see. Adventures in Paradise Part 2, where Frasier is about to finally bed a woman after being with Lilith, or after, for the first time, since Lilith. No, never mind. She shows up in the season finale, I believe, or maybe it was season 2 premiere, in where he goes away to Bora Bora to hook up with this lady, and then she's in the room next to them. Yeah. Let's see. They get together. Lilith gets engaged to a fiance, Brian, much to Frasier's chagrin. They throw out how Frederick is also unathletic as Frasier was. And then over the years. And in 1998's room service, Lilith is recently divorced from her husband, Brian, for his gay affair.
That'll do it.
Yep. Frasier attempts to renew the relationship, but changes his mind when he finds out to his horror that Lilith and his brother Niles had a drunken one-night stand.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Talk about low self-esteem.
Yep. Lilith last appears in Guns and Neurosis in
that's
2003, funny. In which she and Frasier are accidentally set up on a blind date. And I remember this episode. Lilith and Frasier are close to restarting their relationship in the hotel room, but they're interrupted by a loud argument between a young married couple next door. They resolve the couple's dispute, but spend the night together watching television and finally falling asleep on the couch without doing it. The next morning, they part and with a tender final on-screen moment together. In the 2004 episode, Caught in the Act, Frasier's ex-wife, Nanette, now played by Laurie Metcalf. I believe she was the sister in Roseanne, right?
I don't know. I'm not a big Roseanne aficionado.
I could have sworn you were.
No, my parents watched it, but...
fair. Laurie Metcalf, she's Roseanne's sister in Roseanne.
Okay.
So apparently she must star in The Connors. She's Sheldon's mom in Big Bang Theory, I think. Anyway, yeah. She tries to rekindle. This was Frasier's first ex-wife, Nanette Guzman. She tries to rekindle their relationship, but Frasier refuses, and then he falls in love with Charlotte Connor, played by Laura Linney, who I sometimes confuse for Laura Dern for some reason. But the romance turns out to be short-lived when she moves to Chicago. And then in the series finale, Goodnight Seattle, Frasier's offered a job as the host of his own television talk show located in San Francisco, but he has decided to accept the job. However, in the final scene of the show, it's revealed that Frasier has boarded a plane to Chicago, implying he will be with Charlotte. And that's the Frasier story. Over the years, with the exception of Rebecca Howe, played by Kirstie Alley on Cheers, all the surviving main regular cast members of Cheers made an appearance on Frasier. Lilith even was the only one to become a recurring character, appearing in a total of 12 episodes in the, main cast. So Frederick wouldn't count. In the ninth season episode of Frasier called Cheerful Goodbyes, Frasier returns to Boston to give a speech, and Niles, Daphne, and Martin come along to see the city. Frasier runs into Cliff, who was retiring and moving to Florida, and they all attend his retirement party, which the rest of the gang from Cheers were at, including minus Sam, Woody, Diane, and Rebecca, but included Norm and Carla Tortelli, as well as the Barflies Paul and Phil and Cliff's old post office nemesis, Walt Twitchell. In the 11th season episode of Frasier, Caught in the Act, Frasier's married ex-wife, I just said that, a younger version of Nanny G, also boring. Diane Chambers returns, Shelley Long. Shelley Long reprises her role alongside the original Nanny G, Shelley Long reprises her role alongside Lilith, and in a couple episodes, Diane comes to Frasier's world and Yes. Anyway, she played a central role in the show where Diane comes back in season 3, episode 14, and had a brief cameo in the season 2 episode Adventures in Paradise, the one that I was talking about, where he's like, Lilith is next door, and then later on he has a nightmare that Diane is next door. She's in it for a split second. The KACL colors lines were read by anonymous voiceover actors during the filming in front of the live audience. But during post-production, the lines were replaced by celebrities who actually phoned in their parts without having to come into the studio. The celebrities provided voices included Gillian Anderson. Forget which way that
Gilligan
goes.
Anderson.
Kevin Bacon, Halle Berry, Mel Brooks, Cindy Crawford, Billy Crystal, Phil Donahue, David Duchovny, Hilary Duff, Olympia Dukakis. Is that presidential?
Dukakis is I
don't know. Carrie Fisher, Jodie Foster, Art Garfunkel, Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood, Linda Hamilton, Daryl Hannah, Ron Howard, Eric Idle, Stephen King, Jay Leno, Laura Linney, John Lithgow, Yo-Yo Ma, William H. Macy, Henry Mancini, Reba McEntire, Helen Mirren, Mary Tyler Moore, Estelle Parsons, Rosie Perez, Freddie Prinze Jr., Christopher Reeve, Carly Simon, Gary Sinise, Mary Steenburgen, Ben Stiller, Marlo Thomas, Rob Reiner, Carl Reiner, Lily Tomlin, and Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, that's a list.
That is a list, but I guess it was 11 seasons. Finally, some awards and critical response. Frasier is one of the most critically acclaimed comedy series of all time and one of the most successful spin-off series in television history. Critics and commentators have broadly held the show in high regard, and in spite of criticisms of the later seasons, the critics were unanimous in praising at least the early seasons, with varied commentary on when the season's demise occurred, ranging from believing one, that the show had run its course by the end, to some who bemoaned the end of Frasier as the end of situation comedy for adults.
Like, oh, what a shock. Something that's been on for a long time gets worse toward the end.
Right.
Wow. That's astute.
I mean, at least it was a feat that they kept the original cast for the whole 11 seasons. Critics compared the farcical elements of the series, especially in the later seasons, to the older sitcom Three's Company. I guess that was when Niles was married to Daphne finally. And let's see. NBC News contributor Wendell Whitler described the moments of misunderstandings as inspired by the classic comedy of manners, as were the frequent deflation of Frasier's pomposity. What a pompous ass.
Relax, dude.
In 2017, 13 years after the show ended, Frasier was said to have experienced a renaissance on Netflix and achieved a second life as one of the streaming service's most soothing offerings, which is why it is no longer on the service.
Of course. It's on Paramount Minus or something.
Yeah, it's on, there's a list. It's on Tubi, Hulu, Peacock. It's on literally every service other than Paramount Plus, Netflix. Now, for portraying the character in Frasier, Kelsey Grammer was nominated as an outstanding lead actor in a comedy series during the show's entire run, except for 2003. He won that category in 1994, 95, 98, and in 2004. Jeez. He earned 8 Golden Globe nominations for Best Performance by an Actor in a television series, musical, or comedy throughout the series' whole run, and won that category in 1996 and 2001. He won an American Comedy Award as the funniest male performer in a TV series leading role in 1995 and in 96. Grammer won the Screen Actors Guild Award as a part of an ensemble cast of Frasier in 2000. And then finally, there's now the reboot, which is also called Frasier, which is a sitcom scheduled to premiere on October 12th. I think that's this week. This is dropping 3 days. It's a revival of the namesake series featuring the characters Frasier Crane, who first appeared on Cheers and his own show in the 90s. In early 2000s, the most of the plot is still unknown, but star Kelsey Grammer has described it as a third act for the character. The series will take place in Boston, where Cheers, on which the character Frasier was introduced, was set, and as opposed to Seattle, which was, as we know, the original setting of Frasier. The setting will also involve a university campus. Variety states that the series follows Frasier in the next chapter of his life as he returns to Boston, Massachusetts, Massachusetts, with new challenges to face, new relationships to forge, and an old dream or two to finally fulfill.
Oh, as opposed to Boston, North Dakota?
Yes.
Good, I'm glad they specified.
So that's I'm Listening, a Frasier retrospective from Namely 90s.
I feel like I watched a little bit of Frasier, but I don't think I found it funny because I don't think I was old enough, and he was saying a lot of really big words.
Okay, here's the thing. I did watch a lot of Frasier. I watched a lot of later season Cheers, like with Rebecca, as reruns, and it's definitely like going back to watching Cheers and Frasier. I definitely adopted some of his mannerisms and pomposity over the years. It's like really humbling to see where that all began back in the 90s.
He's definitely a caricature. Like no one talks or acts like he does.
Yes, no one talks or acts.
Also,
like
does he have
does.
an accent, or is it like a transatlantic accent?
Frasier's like, are you talking about Kelsey Grammer's like gravelly voice, or like how he talks?
I feel like he has a transatlantic accent.
I couldn't tell you what a transatlantic accent sounds like.
It's like when rich people sound different.
Yes, indubitably.
Let's see. Frasier Crane, transatlantic.
And what comes up are Frasier Crane. How many times?
Oh, theater school.
Word? Oh, yes. Theater. Yeah, Kelsey Grammer has.
Or Mid-Atlantic.
Mid-Atlantic.
Which isn't real, but it's a thing.
I mean, I get that. Like he has a very unique way of speaking, similar to how Captain Kirk, what's his face, William Shatner, has a specific way of speaking after going to theater school for so long.
But this Mid-Atlantic or transatlantic accent is like kind of a rich person thing,
which Frasier is. And
yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's exactly what he's going for. Any other thoughts on Frasier?
That's a series I probably need to watch. It's just I don't know if I have the wherewithal, but I'll try.
I mean, don't try to do it in like a month. I think it's like turn it on for a few episodes, and it's good. It's good background. I guess that's it for this week's deep dive edition of Namely 90s. Remember, you can find new episodes out every Monday, and join us again next week for another variety show episode. Well, we'll make it fun. We'll make it spoopy. Find us on Instagram and YouTube at Namely 90s with a 90s, and tell us what you want us to talk about on future episodes of the deep dives. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/@namely90s, not at namely90s, just namely90s with 90s. And finally, you can contact us through our website, namely90s.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Tossed Salads and Scrambled Eggs, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeart, Good Pods, and wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Brandon. That's Andrew, and we'll catch you next time. I was just going to say it was tickling your pee-pee.
My pee-pee hath been tickled.